The Coastal Athletic Association admits the Fairfield Stags, diving into the state of Connecticut for its 14th member. We'll start with looking at athletic budgets. The Knight Commission for Publics, EADA for privates. Here we're isolating football and Division I hockey from the rest of the athletic budgets. Numbers above the bars represent overall athletic budgets. The top golden bars indicate how much of their athletic budget goes to football or Division I hockey, and the bottom colored bars indicate how much of their athletic spending is left over after isolating football and D1 hockey. Stony Brook would lead in first, followed by Northeastern, Drexel, and Elon. Fairfield slots in at fifth alongside Hofstra. Now looking at athletic budgets a different way, this time instead of isolating football and D1 hockey, we're isolating athletic student aid money. The top golden bars represent how much of athletic budgets are allocated to student aid money, while the bottom colored bars indicate how much of your athletic budget is left over after isolating that student aid money. The top five are Stony Brook, William and Mary, Elon, Northeastern, and Towson. Fairfield slots in at number 6. However, Stony Brook, William and Mary, Elon, and Towson play football, while Northeastern plays Division I hockey, leaving Fairfield first of non-football, non-D1 hockey schools. Switching to men's basketball budgets. NCAA FRS reports via extra points for the publics, EADA for the privates. Charleston, Hofstra, and UNC Wilmington are the top 3, while Monmouth, Stony Brook, and Northeastern are 4, 5, 6. Fairfield comes in at 7th at $3.5 million. Now looking at institutional profiles, you can see why Fairfield's administration would be attracted to the CAA. There's 8 schools ranked in the top 200 of US News World rankings, 3 in the top 60, and 4 in the top 80, including nearby schools in Northeastern, Stony Brook, and Drexel. The company you keep is important to university presidents, and other CAA presidents see Fairfield in the top 140 as a desirable neighbor. Then there's the student recruitment element. Here's a map from the National Center for Education Statistics showing the change in enrollment decline K through 12 from 2022 to 2031, which by extension shows how many 18-year-old students there will be available to recruit. The footprint of the metro will be seeing sharp declines. The same holds true for the footprint of the CAA North as well. But with a tiny bit of presence in the CAA South, the Carolinas will age much better than north of the Mason-Dixon line. So the Carolinas could be an important target for Northeast and Mid-Atlantic schools to compensate for the declining supply of students in their own regions. Shifting specifically to Fairfield student recruitment, here is where Fairfield first-time undergraduate students came from in the fall of 2024 per IPEDS. A quarter came from Massachusetts, where Northeastern is. Another quarter came from New York, where Hofstra and Stony Brook are. 18% from New Jersey, where Monmouth is. 13% in-state from Connecticut. Over 5% from Pennsylvania, home of Drexel. Nearly 3% from Maryland, home of Towson. And over 1% from Virginia, home of William and Mary in Hampton. And considering how much better the Carolinas will age in future 18-year-old students, the Carolinas are an untapped well that Fairfield's administration likely wants to find ways to tap into. Flipping it to the CAA perspective, here are the percentage of U.S. out-of-state students each state exported a few years ago. Connecticut was 15th overall at 2.6%. And take away states like California, Texas, Illinois, Florida, Georgia, Minnesota, Ohio, and Washington, which are not in the CAA footprint, and Connecticut was the single biggest exporter of out-of-state students left on the board that was in the CAA's footprint. Diving into a micro perspective of individual CAA schools and where the state of Connecticut ranks in student recruitment for them, Connecticut would have been the number 3 out-of-state state for Northeastern, supplying 6.7% of Northeastern first-time undergraduate students. Connecticut would have been the number 2 out-of-state state for Stony Brook, supplying 1.1% of Stony Brook first-time undergraduate students. Connecticut would have been the number 3 out-of-state state for Hofstra, supplying 3.5% of Hofstra first-time undergraduate students. Connecticut came in number 4 for out-of-state students for Monmouth, supplying 1.4% of Monmouth first-time undergraduate students. Connecticut was number 6 for out-of-state students at Drexel, supplying 1.7% of Drexel's first-time undergraduate students. And finally, Connecticut was the number 9 state at William & Mary for out-of-state students, supplying 1.7% of William & Mary first-time undergraduate students. A slight factor in Fairfield's move to the CAA might be Fairfield's alumni distribution. According to the Wall Street Journal's database, which was from 2018, over 42% of Fairfield graduates moved to the New York metropolitan area. The number 2 MSA for Fairfield graduates was Boston, supplying 9% of Fairfield graduates. Over 2% of Fairfield graduates moved to the Philly MSA after college, and Philly is where Drexel is located. Now, the Metro Conference also had schools in the New York and Boston metropolitan areas, but the Metro Conference did not have a school in the Philly metropolitan area. For travel purposes, you can kind of think of the CAA as having 2 different 7-team conferences or divisions within one conference, fighting for one auto bid. You have 7 schools in the CAA North, and in Fairfield's case, 5 of the other 6 schools are within a 3-hour bus trip, while Towson is at 4.5 hours. Really, with the exception of Northeastern to Towson, everyone else in the CAA North is within a 5.5-hour bus trip. And a very similar story in the CAA South, as with the exception of College of Charleston to the 2 Virginia schools, everyone else is within a 5-hour bus trip. The CAA has 6 schools in the top 200 of tenure KenPom. Hofstra and College of Charleston are in the top 125, Towson's at 151, North Carolina Wilmington 168, Northeastern 186, and Drexel 199. Fairfield comes in at 278. However, Fairfield has invested in men's basketball, and as in 2022, they just opened the $51 million donor-funded Mahoney Arena, which will instantly be one of the top arenas in the CAA. And those facilities, along with Fairfield's demonstrated donor support, are part of what made Fairfield attractive to the CAA.